Tom, you really have put into words what the issue here is now. This cannot be any longer about your small ideological concerns about how much you should be taxed or things like that. Your choice as a voter now is, are you upholding democracy or are you choosing not to? I would love a day when we have legitimate debates between Democrats and Republicans on important policy issues, but that's not going to happen between now and November.
No, and that, I would love to see that day return. I mean, I'm sure Stuart and I and everybody else would love to have pitched arguments about whether the marginal tax rate should be 37% or 42%.
And for the record, I'll invite you both on to have those arguments with me, because that's what this should be. That's what our dialogue should be. But that's not what the Republican Party is bringing to the table right now.
That's not going to happen anytime soon. And I think what the past few years, and even longer, since 2016, have really proven is that the cult around Donald Trump doesn't care one bit about policy. It doesn't care one bit about issues that used to be owned by the Republican Party, like respect for law enforcement, national security, smaller government, more constrained executive branch, all things that were once bedrock principles of the conservative movement in the Republican Party. The folks around Trump don't care about that. What they care about is soothing and energizing at the same time this itching sense of resentment that they want to get back at other people. They want to make other people angry and miserable as a way of trying to kind of quell that sense of anger within themselves, but also not to let go of this constant stream of drama to which they have just become addicted. That every day is a heroic battle against caravans, against conspiracies, against election riggers, against shady foreign characters. It's not a way to live. People, real life is boring. It takes perseverance. It takes, kind of getting up in the morning and balancing your checkbook and going to work. And people just aren't going to do that anymore. This group of people have said, we're not interested in that anymore. We are going to live in this enervating drama every day.
And this whole question, Stuart, seems about this group of people. It's kind of interesting because for a while it's been the leadership of the Republican Party and the people around Donald Trump and his enablers and a whole lot of people in Congress and the Senate. But this is now in the hands of voters. I don't know what I would do if I were a Republican voter, but I was frustrated by where some of these things are going, both with the Republican Party and Donald Trump. What actually are you supposed to do right now? What does that mean? What action can you take to say, one day I'd like to vote for a strong Republican Party, but that doesn't exist right now?
Well, look, Tom's more optimistic than I am. I think it's not about Donald Trump as much as it is about the sort of total corruption that within the Republican Party. Your only choice in that situation is you have to vote for a Democratic candidate. And most of these races, there really is this dividing line, as you mentioned. It's between, do you believe in democracy and do you believe in autocracy? And what is the choice? And I think one of the most difficult things for us to come to grips with, that those of us who worked in the party, is they want an autocracy. I don't think Donald Trump is a deviation. When we look at these values that Tom was talking about, I mean, Tom and I believed in this stuff, right? We thought this was true. But the conclusion I've come to is that for the majority of the power structure of the Republican Party and a lot of the voters, these weren't values, they were just marketing slogans. Because you don't abandon deeply held beliefs in a few years unless something radically changes, and nothing did. I don't believe in UFOs. If a UFO landed, I would. That didn't happen here. Donald Trump gave people permission to be their worst self. And that's entirely different relationship between an individual and politics than we're accustomed to in America. Politics used to be striving to be something better. And I think, I spent 30 years pointing out flaws in the Democratic Party, but I think it is the last best hope to preserve a democracy where we can get back to arguing about things like the, capital gains tax.
What is that best argument for the point that you've just both made, Tom, to go to moderate Republicans who'd say, you know what, Donald Trump's crazy. I don't support this stuff. I'm just going to sit on my hands in this next election, because the sitting on the hands may not result in Democrats defeating election deniers and conspiracy theorists. So what's the best argument to be? Because not everybody's watching TV all the time, and not everybody's on these TV shows talking about it. What do you do to those rank and file people who just trying to make a buck, get through life, to say you need to have a level of civic engagement that you otherwise may not have thought you needed to have right now?
Well, first, I want to bristle for a moment that Stuart called me an optimist, because I bow to no one in my horrific pessimism about the future of democracy in America. But, I think, Ali, the argument that you make is to call for people that you think can be reached. You have to call out the argument that they're making as a defense, which is, and you hear this by the way, from prominent Republicans. They say, well, I can't vote for a Democrat because in the end, the left wing is still just too much of a danger. And I think you have to talk to former Republicans and conservatives have to talk to their friends and neighbors and say, look, that's not true. They have policies you disagree with, that you and I both disagree with. They're wrong-headed about a lot of things. They want to do things that you and I both find offensive, but they are not trying to set fire to the Constitution of the United States. And that means that you must be their ally and then vote for them and then call them out when they make a mistake. Tell them they're wrong. Tell them that you don't want a particular policy. But the idea that this is about policy is a kind of is the tall grass that moderate Republicans hide in, rather than simply say, I'm going to have to enter a coalition with the Democrats to save the Constitution of the United States. And I think one time I was asked, what could an ordinary person do? I said, look, take the oath to the Constitution that I took as a federal employee for 25 years, tape it above your mirror, and just kind of remind yourself that your oath is to the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And, true faith and allegiance are the same. And it's not about whether you're getting, whether they're going to spend too much forgiving student loans or how they feel about abortion or any of that stuff. If you don't save the Constitution, everything else goes down the drain. Yeah. And I think you just have to short circuit those objections.
Whatever your priority might be, whether it's climate or whether it's lower taxes or whatever, none of it matters if you don't take this action in this time to preserve democracy. And fortunately for a lot of Democrats who also can't understand how they can make those alliances, they have seen examples in some Republicans, including Liz Cheney, a person with whom most Democrats would not share a single policy or many policy agreements, but they would say she chose democracy over party.